Welcome back to Still Part of Us. We are once again joined by Ari, who just told us the sweet story of her son Kai and how heartbreaking that was as well. I Many tears were shed, and but so grateful that Ari is willing to come and chat with us about him, and then also come talk to us about a little bit about what grief has looked like today for her. So Ari, thank you once again. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit in a nutshell of what happened to Kai and about when he was born at the time of this recording?
Yeah, so Kai was born still at 30 weeks. There was no cause of death that was ever found. And at this time, it's been 22 months since then. So he'll be 2 in July.
Which is coming up. And I'm really excited to. I think birthdays are kind of a big deal. And it feels like you're a pretty big deal person when it comes to birthdays because you like to celebrate things that you kind of talked about those major celebratory moments and liking to be crafty and plan those things. So, do you have anything planned for his second birthday?
I think we kind of keep this a little bit more low key. I will either get a cake or bake a cake.
Mhm.
Um, I used to really enjoy baking. I don't have so much time for that now, but yeah, last year we did get a cake, and then went to the beach right around sunset, so close to the time
Oh,
that he was born.
yeah,
And we choose to go to the beach because the name Kai means sea, so it feels like, I don't know, like we're meeting him.
yeah, beautiful. He was born during that golden hour, so that's one thing that you mentioned in the birth episode. So if you get a chance to listen to that, it's just so cool when he came and how beautiful it was in the room. So, Ari, I wanted to ask you, what did grief look like for you and Adam in those first early months? I know that you guys kept to yourself. You kind of mentioned that you kept to yourself, but what were some things that you did that helped you just go through it and process it and really feel it? What did you guys do?
Yeah, so I think that first week we were home pretty much every day. And I was just naturally wallowing and sobbing like
Yeah.
throughout and coming up for air. And we, I think naturally, like Adam and I have a very like playful and joking kind of relationship, and that's just
Mhm.
who we are. And so even amidst like our our sadness and our grief, like we could still find these moments to kind of laugh, and I don't know, just kind of have these breaks from just the weight of our loss. So that was really fortunate. First few weeks, like I knew that I could very well and very easily be swallowed by the depression of having lost Kai. And so actually when we were in the hospital delivering, and the social worker who gives lots of information had mentioned like support groups that were local, and other options, and maybe considering like therapy.
Mhm.
I pursued those right away. Yeah, I think my first support group meeting I attended was through an organization called Empty Cradle.
Oh, uh-huh.
Um, and they have like, I don't know if they're throughout the US, but I know of in San Diego at least. They have like multiple meetings throughout the month for different types of loss, whether it be like miscarriage or stillbirth, or if you are in a subsequent pregnancy. And so I kind of just attended a general one, and this was like 2 weeks after having given birth to Kai. And oh man, Adam attended that one with me. And it turns out it's mostly just mothers who attend those regularly.
Yeah.
But I had really encouraged Adam to join me and just be present, whether or not he wanted to share. Just being really mindful and respectful that, you know, everybody grieves differently, every single person. But there are also like some common differences between how like a man and a woman or a mother and father will grieve. But he was very kind to join me, and it meant so much to like have him there. And he was really like just gave me strength and being present. And a lot of those meetings, it's sometimes new faces, or oftentimes new faces.
Mm-hmm.
There are not too many people who are consistently there for like long term, besides the host. And so it's oftentimes mothers who are telling the stories of their babies. And man, for that first meeting, I was just like sobbing throughout it, just listening to these stories and then also just like telling mine.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly like, I don't know, it's a interesting space to be in. Like it's like you were saying, like it's a cathartic space to be able to talk about your babies and just experience those emotions of sadness and anger and all of those stages of grief with others. And I honestly don't know how they even like heard me because I was just crying throughout explaining everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I used those first few weeks and even months to kind of attend a support meeting here and there. And then also started seeking a therapist. I think I started meeting with her in August, so like a month after, maybe 4 or 3 weeks later. And I feel very fortunate and blessed that my therapist, who I had initially, was somebody who could really speak a lot of truth and wisdom to me, even though like she doesn't have any sort of experience with baby loss. She was just phenomenal in helping me process my grief and giving me the tools and recognizing like what I was experiencing and how I could navigate that space, especially around guilt and
Mm.
the weight of that. I don't think if I didn't have her her specifically in those first few months, I'm sure like I would still be way, I don't know, set back
Mm.
in my healing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I kind of poured myself into that, but then I realized like lately that we also and I like just also needed relief and breaks from just feeling sadness and like almost like immediately started like going out and trying to like just find ourselves again
Yeah.
and taking space to just remember who we are, like outside of being like parents who lost a baby.
Yeah. There was just a lot of things going through my brain when you said a couple things. Like, first of all, I think kudos to your therapist, who is, even though she has not gone through something similar, she is able to help you navigate through that. And because finding the right fit is so, so important. So I always encourage people, please search out a good therapist that is a good match for you. They might not be a good match for your neighbor or your sister or whatever, but you just need to find somebody that works well for you. And
Absolutely.
I really would love to emphasize this because we don't talk about this too much about how there's this grief, but then your body is not, I don't think your body is supposed to deal with the amount of grief like constantly, right? Like nonstop. Your body can't handle it. And so there needs to be a break, a relief, like almost when you said earlier, you're like, we're kind of jokey. And so we tried to find some even times to laugh, even though you had just barely lost Kai. And we found that same similar situation. My husband felt kind of guilty because he was sitting there joking with his siblings when they were meeting our son for the first time. And they were just joking and laughing. He felt guilty for laughing. But I think like this is permission to, you need to have a break, like whether that looks like some laughing or like you said, to go out and be who you are and identify as Ari and not just, you know, the mom to somebody that like died. Because that's a hard relationship to be also, because you're Kai's mom, but then everybody looks at you as, oh, she's the sad mom, or she's the mom that lost a baby. And so finding yourself is really important too. So like I appreciated you saying that. That was a light bulb for me.
Yeah. Yeah, we have Adam's father. He has Parkinson's, so
Mm,
and it's been really hard in the last few years. So that has felt like kind of long-term grief that we've had for many years now, and
yeah.
that's only grown even more so in the last couple of years. So yeah, we definitely like try in being in that grief, search for escapes from just feeling sad,
Yeah.
and finding joy in life. That's still so necessary. So
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's like perfect. And I think sometimes we don't talk about that like your body needs a break and even from grief and the sadness. And I know that you have mentioned that you have had another child since Kai's birth. And I am wondering how that pregnancy was and how that's been. He's your second child is 7 months old. So how has that been being pregnant after loss and then also parenting after loss? Any interesting observations that you've had during those times?
yeah, it's funny that you ask, because just like maybe 2 weeks ago, my family or Adam's family was asking like if you could describe your pregnancy in one word, like what would it be? And so like everybody kind of shared, and my mother-in-law, she wanted to share one for every pregnancy that she had
Hmm.
for all 3 of her children. And that kind of like I hadn't answered yet, so that like a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, like of course I should answer for like both pregnancies.
Yeah.
And thinking about it, like in one word, my word was anxiety. I was so terribly anxious being pregnant the second time. Having a subsequent pregnancy after loss was it was hard, and it that was something that I had like grieved a lot after losing Kai. Was that like this kind of phrase that I've heard in different like loss spheres is the loss of innocence in
Yeah.
pregnancy. Is that you don't, like I had mentioned before, my pregnancy with Kai was easy. It was very, very easy, and it was really joyful.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, and every experience of it, of like people, like asking about like if it's your first, like congratulations, just speaking with strangers. And like I mentioned many times, I'm introverted. I don't usually like the
Yeah.
sort of encounter with strangers, but I absolutely like was thrilled by it and was just beaming. And so being pregnant after losing Kai was hard. I lost a lot of that kind of joy because I knew very well like the statistics of baby loss and had experienced it myself. So at every turn, I was just constantly worried and had come prepared for every like appointment with lots of questions and
Hmm.
ready to, I don't know. I think was just always nervous that
Yeah.
I would lose Koa, who's my second
Hmm.
born. Um, and yeah, they in preparation for that, I have the same OB/GYN, and she's phenomenal. I absolutely love her and hope she's always practicing while I'm in need of an OB. But
Yeah. Yeah.
she really prepped me and told me like how we were gonna care for this baby
Yeah.
through many, many more appointments. And again, in this pregnancy, I mostly had ultrasounds. I think I had like a Doppler maybe once or twice,
Hmm.
by not my OB, a different OB in the office.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, and then I, at the same time, I think every like 2 or 3 months, no, it must have been more frequently than that. Like every 1.5 months would see a specialist,
Hmm.
so that they could continuously track baby's growth and anatomy. And yeah, that, but it was really hard and was not as, I think when it came to like interacting with strangers about being pregnant,
Hmm.
it was both like I wanted it, but at the same time, like I didn't want it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind
Yeah.
of,
Oh
it's
no.
conflicting.
Oh yeah, totally. Yes, completely conflicting because you're just like, oh yeah, you just want to be carefree and they don't know your history, but you're like, I know my history and it is fraught with, yes, anxiety and trauma and loss. And yeah, I get where you're coming from. I like to ask this question because it gives everybody an opportunity to shout out people that were awesome throughout this entire process. Tell me some things that people said and did, that helped you through, the grief process. And I'm talking like, directly after Kai's birth or like even at the hospital or even now to this day, 2 years later. Anybody that you'd like to shout out and kind of point out things that helped you and that somebody else could help, um, somebody that's supporting, a lost parent as well.
Yeah. Honestly, like I I had mentioned this before. I think I had the best support that someone could have, like going through this experience. Everybody from like all the nurses and the doctors, um, even down to the social worker,
Yeah.
came and just met us in the space that we were in our grief, and were so sensitive and patient and kind. Um, so I always 1,000% like recommend people to my particular hospital and
Yeah.
network that I'm in, locally. Um, and I think after Kai's birth, my family and our friends were just phenomenal in the support that they provided. For one, like my parents were there at our house very frequently after, and they had provided many, many meals. Were there to, I think I mentioned before, they helped us with making the plans for Kai's cremation and sorting that out so I didn't have to like deal with those
Yes.
cruciating details. And then they paid for it financially, and they also got for me a necklace that has a pendant with Kai's ashes in it. I wear it
Oh,
very frequently, but it actually broke. The ring broke, so I have to fix that.
yeah.
I'm not wearing it now. Um, but that was a huge blessing to just feel like I have him with me everywhere I go. My mother-in-law, man, she was just so kind, and it was so easy grieving with her. And she would just come and like help us around the house and cry with me and just kind of, I don't know. I mean, she's speaking too. That's her grandchild,
Yeah.
and her first grandchild. And so just kind of processing that grief together was incredibly helpful for me and exactly what I needed. My mom, in those first few weeks, she was very like trying to support me however she could. I don't think she was processing her grief right away.
Oh,
She was just in mama mode, trying to help me and protect me. And so weeks later, actually, like closer to our celebration of life, is when that I think that grief really started to hit her,
oh,
and processing her grief with me has been really helpful. And she continues along with like my sister-in-laws, to just say his name, and remember him on, like, whenever there's a holiday that comes around, and then even when there's not, just, telling me, like, I miss Kai, like, I'm thinking of Kai, I'm thinking of you. And that's just the best, when anybody tells me that, they're thinking of my baby, or they remembered this about, like, my pregnancy with Kai, or
Yeah.
that they had planned on doing this with Kai. Like, that just fills my heart with so much joy. And of course it's emotional, but, like, hearing his name and just getting to talk about him means the world to me. And I need to mention my best friend too. Like, she, I think, having a young baby, I think at this point her baby wasn't a newborn, but I think it can be hard to kind of, like,
Yeah.
meet come into that space of a parent who has, like, recently lost a baby. But she was just, and has always been, like, so supportive of me, and, like, would honestly, like, say to me, like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what you need. And I was even, like, talking to my mom about this and trying to, like, gain wisdom from her on, like, how to help you through this. And I don't know what it is that you need, but I'm here for you. And, like, I love you. And that alone, like, you don't have to know what I need. You don't have to know what to say, but to just acknowledge, like, my loss, and, say my baby's name and talk with me about it. Like, that's exactly what it is that I need.
Yeah.
Um, so that meant a lot to me. And my sisters did the same thing. Um, I actually saw, like, more recently, maybe like a few months ago, that my sister-in-law still has Kai's ultrasound, like, framed on her wall. That just, like, oh my gosh, that brought so much joy to my heart. Like,
Yeah.
he's not just, like, his picture isn't just framed in my house. It's in her house too, because that's her family, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And then I have another friend who, oh my gosh, she just, like, the conversations I have with her around loss and about Kai have been just so healing for me. She just went before I had Koa, would just continuously kind of, like, remind me that, like, I'm still a mom. And
Yes.
I don't know, she was just always would welcome the conversation to talk about Kai. And she would later go on to experience her own loss. And um, I don't know, just having that space to remember our babies together has been, like, really, really special, and so affirming, like,
Yeah. What wonderful support you had and that you have in your life. I think those things are just wonderful that people have said and done. I like what you said about your mother-in-law, that she was a good person to grieve with. And we all kind of strive to be a good person to grieve with, but all you have to do most of the time is just to acknowledge that it happened and say their name. And that is exactly, like you said, what you needed, just to be there. I really have appreciated this conversation. This has been so enlightening. I really have had tons of light bulbs go off in my head about grief, and I was wondering if you had anything else, any last bit of advice you'd like to share with us about grief, and anything that you want to impart on anybody that is going through this and or supporting somebody that is going through this.
yeah. I would say, I think, for one, like, one thing that helps me personally is knowing what to expect. And so, personally, like, going to support meetings,
Mm.
listening to podcasts, listening to like audiobooks about loss was really, really helpful because it created this space where I could hear these stories and not only relate to them, but also like kind of see and identify like my own experiences and, be a support to others. So I would always encourage people who are going through a loss to, find what it is that you need to grieve, or how you prefer to grieve, but also like seek out community. And it doesn't have to necessarily be like actually meeting people. It could
Yeah.
just simply like be online. It could be through social media. It could
Yeah.
be through podcasts. It could be through audiobooks. But for me personally, I really needed to be able to relate to others and know that, like I'm not isolated in my experiences, um, that what I'm feeling, what I'm going through is all completely normal. And that there is like a light at the tunnel, I guess you can say, like this grief, it's really, really heavy in the beginning. It's incredibly heavy and it will continue to be on certain days. But I think over time, generally speaking, like although the grief stays with me, like you just kind of wear it differently. It's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit easier to carry. And yeah, you're not alone. So seek out community. That's, I think, essential.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ari. This has been so enlightening and I think will be so helpful to others. And thank you so much for sharing Kai with us. Like that is an honor and privilege to be witness to his life and I appreciate you bearing your heart to us today. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for the space that I can share about Kai. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.